One of the strangest questions a White House press secretary has ever faced began with a single moment during a press briefing. A reporter asked a question that immediately changed the tone of the room. Earlier that morning, Donald Trump had accused several Democratic lawmakers of behavior he described as seditious. The reporter wanted clarity. The question was simple but uncomfortable. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress? The answer was short. No. At first, the moment seemed like it would pass quickly, just another tense exchange during a press briefing. But later that night, something unexpected happened on television. During his show, Jimmy Kimmel turned the moment into something much bigger than a quick late-night joke. Instead of delivering a punchline and moving on, Kimmel slowed everything down. That he placed the administration's words side by side and allowed viewers to watch the contradiction unfold in real time. That approach changed the tone of the segment completely. It wasn't just comedy anymore. It became something closer to analysis. First, the audience laughed. That's what people expect from late-night television. But as the segment continued, something shifted. The laughter slowly turned into recognition. Viewers weren't just reacting to jokes. They were noticing a pattern. And once people begin to recognize patterns, the story becomes much harder to ignore. Kimmel understood that instead of rushing through the monologue, he kept replaying the clips. He showed the original remarks, then the explanations that followed. And suddenly the focus wasn't on a single moment anymore. It was on a cycle. The spotlight then moved to the White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, who had stepped to the podium to address the controversy. She spoke confidently and quickly, explaining that the president had been joking and that critics were misunderstanding his comments. On paper, it sounded like a routine clarification, but Kimmel approached the explanation differently. He played her response again, then immediately followed it with Trump's earlier remarks. The contrast spoke for itself. First, the audience laughed again. Comedy often releases tension, but the more clips Kimmel replayed, the more the tone shifted. This wasn't just a collection of jokes anymore. He was building an argument. Kimmel pointed out that whenever a controversial statement created backlash, the same explanation seemed to appear. It was a joke. According to Kimmel, the phrase began to sound less like clarification and more like an emergency exit. Then he delivered a line that immediately brought the audience back to life. He suggested that if every controversial statement becomes a joke only after backlash begins, the only people who aren't laughing are the ones sent out to explain it. The audience erupted. But underneath the laughter, there was something else. Recognition. That moment changed the entire feeling of the segment. It stopped feeling like entertainment and started feeling like exposure. Just 27 years old, Karoline Leavitt had already made history as the youngest White House press secretary, but that history also placed her directly in the spotlight. Kimmel leaned into that contrast. He framed her not as the cause of the chaos, but as the person standing in front of it, trying to make it sound normal. In his version of the story, Trump created the headlines, she delivered the explanations, and the gap between those two roles became the focus of the segment. Kimmel continued replaying the clips, Leavitt insisting something had been misunderstood, Trump making another statement that restarted the controversy, the White House trying to redirect the conversation, and then Trump pulling the same issue back into the spotlight again. It wasn't just one mistake. It looked like a cycle. Kimmel didn't need secret documents or hidden recordings to make his point. All he needed was the replay button, and once the pattern became clear, every denial started to feel weaker. Every explanation sounded more defensive. At one point during the segment, Kimmel even paused and asked the audience a simple question. By the way, where are you watching from tonight? It was a brief moment, but it made viewers feel like they were part of the conversation. By the time the segment ended, clips were already spreading across social media. People weren't just sharing the jokes. They were sharing the structure of the argument. Many viewers said the segment helped them understand the situation more clearly than traditional briefings, and that may explain why the reaction was so strong. Trump has often challenged headlines and criticized reporters, but satire creates a different kind of challenge. It reaches audiences who may not be watching for political persuasion, and it turns repetition into memory. When the same clips are replayed again and again, the message sticks. In the end, what started as a routine late-night monologue became something much larger. Not just a joke. A conversation, and for millions of viewers watching that night, The patterns suddenly became impossible to ignore.